This is Marie Segaris from Underground Crafter, and in today's video I'm going to show you how to do the extended knit stitch in Tunisian crochet. So I'm using this set of Denise to go crochet hooks, and I love these because they're portable and I can choose the size that I want. For this particular yarn I'm going to use the N15 or 10 millimeter, and I don't have to make such a very large project, so I'm just going to put on a relatively short cord, and we have little stoppers in here too, so I'm going to put that on. And this pattern, I'm going to be using this Kramer Yarns Perfection. Now the free pattern, the written version, is available on my blog, and you'll be able to get the link above if you want to have the written version as well. So here's what I'm going to do. I have my crochet hook set up. I'm going to grab my yarn, and I'm going to start with a slip knot on the hook. Now this particular stitch, which I'm calling the extended knit stitch, and that's Tunisian crochet, so it's not knitting, but it looks like the stockinette stitch in knitting, but extended. You can use any multiple stitches. I'm going to start with 16 for the pattern that I have put on the blog, and that's because I wanted it to be a certain width. Now one of the things that I like to recommend with Tunisian crochet is to use a crochet hook that is bigger than the size you would typically use with that particular yarn. And the reason for that is because Tunisian crochet stitches, sometimes they can curl and things of that nature, and having the looser hook gives the fabric a better look. Also tends to prevent curling. So let me just count how many I have. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16. I have an extra, so I'll take that off. And as I said, it can be any number of chains for this particular stitch pattern. I made the scarf that I have the free pattern for the Red Scarf Project. It's a charity, and they require their projects to be a certain width, but you can make it any width that you want for your project. So what you're going to do, and I like to crochet in the back bump when I do Tunisian crochet. It's not necessary, but I'll show you how to do it in case you'd like to try it. First thing we're going to do is the base row. You're going to skip the very first chain, and you're going to insert your hook under the next chain. You can do it through the back bump like I have, or through just the regular front side of the loop, whatever your preference is. And then you're going to yarn over, pull the yarn through, and leave it on the hook. And we're going to do that all the way across. We just had to skip the first stitch. Now we don't have to skip. So we're going to insert our hook, yarn over, draw up a loop, and leave it on the hook. And we're going to do that all the way across the row. At the end of the row, we should have 16, or the same number of stitches you started with. Even though we skipped one, because we ended up, that loop is already on the hook, so we end up with the same number of stitches. Now Tunisian crochet is different from when you're using standard crochet, because you don't have to have extra chains like for turning chains the way that you would in standard crochet. In Tunisian crochet you just crochet as many stitches as you want, and that's the only number that you need. So again, this Kramer Perfection yarn is a super bulky yarn, so that's why I'm using a large hook, but I'm actually using even a larger size than what they would recommend, again because I find it makes Tunisian crochet stitches a little bit more easy to work with. So this is the forward part of the base row. So Tunisian crochet, if you haven't done it before, there's a forward row and a return row for each row in the pattern. So this, what I just did here, is called the forward part of the base row. Now we're going to do the return, and this return for this specific pattern is going to be the same for every single row. So once we do it here, you'll just follow the same way for the rest of the row. You're going to yarn over and draw through one loop. That's also known as making a chain. It's the same steps as making a chain, so that could be described as chain 1. So I'll just show it to you again. We had the loop on the hook, oops, and we'll see that it was just the same as a chain 1. So chain 1, or yarn over and draw through a loop, whatever you prefer, it's the same thing. And now for the rest of the way across this row, we're going to yarn over and pull through 2 loops. And that's going to be all the way across the row. So yarn over, draw through 2 loops, yarn over, draw through 2 loops, yarn over through 2 loops, all the way across. And that, once we're done, we'll have just the 1 loop on the hook, and that will be our base row. So again, we're forwarding and now we're doing the return on our base row. Okay, so now that we're at the end of our base row, here we are again. We have just the one loop on the hook. And for this particular pattern, I did 2 rows of Tunisian Purl Stitch, and that's just because I like to help reduce the curling in Tunisian crochet. So I'm going to show you how to do the Tunisian Purl Stitch. You're going to drop the yarn to the front of the project, and then on your next stitch, so in Tunisian crochet, unless specifically suggested by the pattern, you're never going to put your hook into that very first loop that's right under the loop on the hook. So we're leaving the yarn in front, and then under this next vertical bar, we're just going to slide our hook under it. And then we're going to pull up the yarn and yarn over and draw through a loop and then leave it on the hook. So I'll show you that again. You're going to drop the yarn to the front. You're going to insert your hook under the next vertical bar. Then you're going to wrap the yarn over and you're going to draw through that loop and leave the loop on the hook. So we're going to do this all the way across this Tunisian Purl Stitch for this particular row. And the reason I said is just a couple reasons. If you haven't done Tunisian crochet before, it typically curls, so kind of like how when you knit in stockinette stitch it curls. And so one of the ways that you can reduce the curl is by using some purl stitches, and that's just because they redistribute the weight. If you think about Tunisian crochet, there's a lot of weight usually on the front side of the project, or rather on the back side, and the purl stitches kind of move the weight up to the front. They also add a nice texture. So one of the things that I like about doing them in the beginning and ending rows is it's like a built-in border. So you don't have to add a border later at the end because you already have this kind of decorative section at the beginning. Now for the very last stitch in Tunisian crochet, it's a little bit wonky looking and there's different ways that people do it. I just recommend for this just going right under here and making your last Tunisian Purl Stitch. And then the return row is going to be the same as the one we did before. We're going to start with 1 chain and then we're going to yarn over and pull through 2 loops, and we're going to continue that yarn over through 2 loops all the way across until we've worked off these stitches. Now if you're making the scarf that I made in the pattern that's pictured at the beginning of the video, and I again have the link above, you'll do another row of the Tunisian Purl Stitch. So we'll do another row across and then the same return row. But for the video, because I like to keep them nice and short, I'm just going to show you now the next stitch, which is what I'm calling the extended knit stitch. So again, we're going to skip this loop that's right underneath the one on the hook, and then we're going to do a Tunisian knit stitch. So the Tunisian knit stitch, if you think of this vertical bar, if you turn it on the side, you'll see that it's actually a loop. So for the Tunisian knit stitch, you're going to insert your hook through this loop from the front to the back. So just to show you the loop again, so this that looks like a vertical bar, if you turn it to the side, it's a loop. You're going to insert your hook through that loop, then you're going to yarn over and drop a loop. Now you're going to chain 1. This is what makes it extended. Okay? Before you chained 1, it was really just a regular knit stitch. Now it's an extended knit stitch. So for the next stitch we'll do the same. We're going to insert the hook through that next loop from the front to the back, yarn over and drop a loop. That's our Tunisian knit stitch, and then we're going to chain 1. That's going to make it extended. We're going to repeat that all the way across. So inserting the hook through the loop, yarn over, drop a loop, and then chain 1. So let's keep doing that all the way across the row. And then we're going to have the very same standard return that we've been doing all along, but I do want to show you that very last stitch because, as I mentioned, sometimes it's a little bit, the shape of it is a little bit difficult to deal with. So as we get to the last stitch, we'll just show that one as well. Oops, okay, almost there. So as I said, both of these stitch patterns, the purl and the extended knit, can be worked over any number of stitches. So you can change them up for any project that you're working on. Okay, so in this last stitch, we're going to insert the hook in, and it doesn't really look the same as the other ones. It's almost kind of one-sided, but that's okay. We're going to yarn over and drop a loop just like we've been doing, and then chain one. And that chain one is for the extended knit stitch, and that's something that can be a little bit confusing about this particular stitch. Now we're going to do that regular return row. So we're going to chain one again and then yarn over and draw through 2 loops. And we're going to repeat that all the way across. Now for the pattern that you saw at the beginning of the video, what I did was I repeated this extended knit stitch until the scarf measured about 64.5 inches long. So I would say pretty close to your finished length. For me, it was about 1 inch less than my finished length. And then what I did was I repeated that Tunisian purl row again, so 2 more rows of that. And then what I did was a bind off, which I'm going to show you now. So as you can see, the top rows here are a little bit open, whereas our bottom row is sealed off. So for Tunisian crochet, we often have a bind off row, and for this particular project, I used a single crochet bind off, which I'm just going to show you right now. So I did this in the bind off with the same pattern for the Tunisian purl stitch, and that's because again I ended with that Tunisian purl stitch and I wanted it to look symmetrical, but you can choose to insert your hook as for whatever stitch you like. So if you're going to do it the way it was in the pattern, you're going to drop the yarn to the front because we're doing the Tunisian purl stitch. You're going to insert the hook underneath the next vertical bar, and you're going to yarn over and draw through 1 loop. Now that you have 2 loops on your hook, you're going to yarn over and draw through both loops, and so you'll get something that looks quite a bit like a single crochet. Now let's repeat that again. You're going to drop the yarn to the front, insert the hook under the next vertical bar, yarn over and draw through 1 loop, and then yarn over and draw through both loops. And you're going to repeat that all the way across, and as you do that, you can see that this top row is filling in and it doesn't look so open. And so for a scarf, that's going to keep it nice and super cozy and warm, and you're not going to have to worry about a bad breeze getting a hold of you or anything like that. So that's the other reason I recommend closing it off, especially for winter wear, so you can keep it warmer. So you're going to keep doing this all the way across, and so for this bind off row there isn't going to be a return. You're just going to be working in one direction, and when this is done, you're pretty much done with this particular project. Now you'll see that I didn't really need the cord to be this long. I had talked about in the beginning with my Denise hook I could put a short cord or a long cord. There's actually a cord shorter than this, but I have it in another project right now, so I didn't use that one. Some people I'm sure will be wondering, can you use a regular crochet hook for this? I think it depends on your comfort with having a lot of stitches squished up on here and how worried you are that they might slip off. I would be worried, so I would use a Tunisian crochet hook. Again, for that last stitch, it is going to be a little wonky. You're still going to drop the yarn to the front, insert your hook under the last stitch, yarn over and drop a loop as for the Tunisian purl stitch, and then you're going to yarn over and draw through 2 loops. And then you'll fasten off and weave in your ends and you'll be done. And that's pretty much the extended knit stitch scarf. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and feel free to subscribe to get my next video as soon as it comes out. Have a wonderful day.